Last year, I think it was, or at the time when she was still functioning and was able to talk, she forgot her name. She didn't know her name. But the last thing she remembered, she was Jewish. So It's remarkable. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know her name. She didn't recognize me as her daughter, but she knew she was Jewish.
How did you know that she knew she was Jewish?
Well, I would say to her, first of all, I would wear a scarf and I would come to her, help her to get up. And she would look at me and she goes, "Are you Jewish?" She didn't recognize me as her.
I remember you told me this. And so she was telling you, we're both Jewish. You're Jewish and I'm Jewish too.
And I go to her, "Are you Jewish?" She goes, "Yes, yes." So that's core.
Amazing. That's so core. That is so core. And speaking of a woman who literally went through the whole communist regime and they couldn't stamp that out of her.
When we brought my dad to set up hospice at home, she really didn't recognize him. So she says to me, "Why are we having hospital in my home?" And we were worried that she would get upset. And I don't know why. And I said to her, "This man has no place to go." She goes, "So?" And I said, "He's a Jewish man." And she said, "Then he can stay."
That is an amazing example of this concept. That is the most amazing example because there's no intellect there. It's deeper than that. That's the idea of engraved letter. It's not ink that could flake off. Your mind is gone. Your memories are gone. You don't recognize your daughter. You don't recognize your husband. But you know you're Jewish. Today is the day that God said, "You are my people. You are my priestly nation." So we say this is a very special, auspicious day, this honorable day, that we became God's honorable people, God's honorable priests. So we were talking last week about the holiday of Shavuos. We were giving more like a technical background. I wanted to continue giving some of the facts of the holiday, and then I wanted to give, as much time as we have, some of the spiritual dimension of the holiday. So as we said, the most important thing to remember is to go to synagogue this Friday, May 26th, to hear the 10 Commandments, to stay focused. You are getting the Torah for time 3,335 from a deeper level of God than ever before. And God wants you to be there. So if you have a synagogue near you, go to synagogue. If you have a Chabad house, call the Chabad house. Find out what time they're doing the reading of the 10 Commandments. Very probable in a Chabad house that they're reading it more than one time to make it easier for people at work. But I would definitely highly encourage everyone to go because we're supposed to be there, just like the original time, 3,335 years ago, when it was every man, woman, and child that ever was, is, or will be. Every human being and every soul. And we all want to be there. So that is the most important thing to remember about the holiday. Second thing, the night before, meaning Thursday night, traditionally, men stay up all night and learn. It is the Jewish custom. So all Jews have this custom of staying up the night of the Shavuos holiday, the first night, which this year is going to be this Thursday night, all night. All night means till about 3:30 in the morning, and learning Torah. Why? We're atoning for the fact that the original giving of the Torah, 3,335 years ago, the Jews went to sleep. They went to sleep the night before God gave them the Torah, and to atone for that, ever since, we stay up all night the night before God gave us the Torah. Now, the question is, why did those Jews go to sleep the night before the holiday of Shavuos? Why did they go to sleep the night before they got the Torah? They just spent 49 days preparing for this moment. Remember, every day they counted, every day they focused, every day they were anticipating. For 49 days, they're climbing. And the night before the grand moment, they all like crawl into their beds and sleep comfortably the whole night. And we're told that it was a very sweet sleep. And we're told the bugs didn't bite. So they could sleep very soundly, which sounds like it was a good sleep, like it was a good thing. Was it good? Was it bad? Well, obviously it was bad. We've been atoning for it ever since. But then why they have such a sweet sleep? Why didn't the bugs bite? Because they actually had good intentions. They actually had spiritual intentions in going to bed the night before they got the Torah. What did they feel? They thought, we just worked for 49 days. We did our max. We did the most we could do as human beings, climbing the ladder of our closeness to God. And now we need God to do the final piece. We need him to elevate us, to lift us up to that highest level of closeness to him. So we're going to sleep to let him finish off the job. It sounds very holy. And we repent for it every single year because God doesn't want to saturate us from above. God wants us to do whatever we can from below, far more powerful. It might turn out smaller, more flawed, more imperfect results, but it's precious because it's man-made. And that's the theme we've had ever since in our history. When we extend our own efforts, even if it's not so perfect, even if there's flaws, but it's precious because we're investing ourselves in our relationship with God. Have you ever had this experience that someone did something for you? Not that it was so amazing what they did, but it was special because they invested themselves, because they put themselves in it, because you felt they were trying hard to do something nice for you, like maybe a nice Mother's Day gift when your children were young, some flawed, imperfect gift, but it was precious because, you know, they really meant it.
You know, the kids make paintings, imperfect paintings, give it as a present.
Imperfect and precious.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's exactly it. If it's a Mother's Day gift, if it's a birthday gift, if it's an anniversary gift. I clearly remember when I was a child, I don't know what it was, maybe it was my mother's birthday. I was at a friend's house. We made a chocolate cake. I have no clue what it tasted like, but I know it touched her heart. So those imperfect presents full of heart, that's what we want. Those are very touching. And we feel that way because God feels. So God says, I don't want you to go to sleep and me make you perfect and elevated and spiritual and holy. I want you to continue the climb. I gave you a flash 49 days ago. I took you out of Egypt. That was the flash. And ever since, it's been the climb. And yes, your climb could perhaps produce imperfect results because you're imperfect human beings. It's very precious to me, your hand-drawn paintings, your lumpy chocolate cake. It's very precious to me because you're doing it. It's your efforts. And that's why ever since, every single year, we repent, so to speak, for what we did in a previous lifetime or what our husbands did in a previous lifetime, for that going to sleep. And therefore the men, the tradition is they stay up all night. And again, all night means in Chicago this time of year till about 3:30 in the morning to learn. Another Shavuos custom of all Jewish people is to eat dairy on Shavuos holiday. Now, of course, every holiday meal we're supposed to have meat. So what we're really supposed to do when we have the dairy, which everyone has the first day, some people also have the second day, is we first eat dairy and then we wait the hour or so you wait between dairy and meat, and then we have a meat meal. So you would make the kiddush and have dairy, finish your dairy, and then wait the hour, and then wash, have your challah bread, and have your meat meal. Everyone does that the first day, and some people do it the second day as well. There are many reasons given for this custom, which is a very unusual custom. It's the only time that we have as part of the holiday meal dairy. The only other time it's a custom to have dairy is actually on Hanukkah. Hanukkah is also a custom to have dairy, but that's not a holiday meal. But this is literally a holiday meal. There's kiddush, there's challah, and the custom is to have dairy and then, of course, meat later. Why? Many, many, many reasons given. I'll give you three. I could probably give you many more. One is a technical reason given by many is that we're commemorating what the Jews ate when they first got the Torah 3,335 years ago. They didn't have meat that first day, they had dairy. Why? Because that's when they got the Torah. That's when they had to keep the laws of kosher. And the Torah was given on Shabbos. They couldn't slaughter ritually cattle. And even if they had until that wasn't kosher, they couldn't ritually slaughter it on Shabbos. They couldn't make their utensils kosher on Shabbos. So they ate dairy that first day. So we, to commemorate this, also eat dairy. It says Torah is compared to nourishing milk and to many other things. It says the Mount of Sinai is compared to like a mountain of cheese. On the holiday of Shavuos, this was the only time in the temple, besides one other sacrifice, that actually is from leavened bread. There were 2 loaves offered, specifically, uniquely on Shavuos. The whole rest of the year, basically, the temple was kosher for Passover. Every bread offering was a different version of matzah, basically, besides one offering, the Todah offering. Otherwise, it was all matzah, except on Shavuos. On Shavuos, it was literally 2 loaves of how we would understand leavened bread. So to commemorate the 2 loaves, we have 2 meals, the dairy and the meat, with obviously a break of like an hour in between. And many other reasons, many simple reasons, many mystical reasons, many Kabbalistic reasons. But whatever the understanding, we eat dairy. I always tell my children that we're having a big party because God gave us the most precious gift. He gave us himself. He gave us his Torah. It's the biggest present, so we want to celebrate. So what better way to celebrate than with chocolate and ice cream and Lebens and yogurt and blintzes and cheesecake? Come on, this is a humongo party. So I never saw that written in the books anywhere, but that's definitely how my children grew up understanding why we have dairy on Shavuos. Some communities read the book of Ruth. If you remember, we studied the book of Ruth, right? Remember that? Yes, we studied it. You can access the videos online on YouTube to remember the book of Ruth. Why do we read the book of Ruth on Shavuos? Well, King David, who was, of course, Ruth's illustrious great-grandson, passed away on Shavuos. So that's one tie-in between Ruth and Shavuos. And the other one is because Ruth is considered like the ultimate convert. She embodies the convert. And in a sense, we all converted on the holiday of Shavuos. We all became Jewish on Shavuos. So it's the most appropriate time to read about what it means to be a real convert, to read about Ruth. Tying back to this idea of Shavuos as King David's passing, it's a time when traditionally the Lubavitcher Rebbe would emphasize the study of chitas. Chitas is the daily study portion every day from the week's Torah portion, that's Chumash, from the daily portion of Psalms, of Tehillim, from the annual yearly portion of Tanya, meaning Chumash is divided every week into 7 portions. Tehillim, Psalms, is divided every month into 30 days. And Tanya is divided in an annual cycle. So we have Chumash, Tehillim, Tanya. Chumash, Tehillim, Tanya spell out the word chitas. Chitas means fear, dread. And it's based on a verse that says that God will put his fear, his dread on the people around, that they won't harm us. So chitas is protection. Chitas does many things. Lubavitcher Rebbe highly, highly pushes, encourages, asks for the study of chitas. It's a wonderful addition if you're looking to add in Torah learning, as we discussed last week on the Shavuos holiday. If you want, you could go on Chabad.org, write in the word chitat, C-H-I-T-A-T, or maybe chitas. I think chitas actually, C-H-I-T-A-S. And it's written in English, it's written in Hebrew. There's all these videos, audio, easy as possible, as user-friendly as possible. Again, Chumash is every week there's the Torah portion that's read in synagogue on Saturday. That Torah portion we study over the week, so it's divided into 7 sections. Every month we finish the cycle of Psalms, of Tehillim, so every day we have 1/30th. And every year we finish the cycle of Tanya, so we have 365th of Tanya that we do every day, and that's called chitas. What's the chitas connection to Shavuos, besides the fact that obviously we want to add in our Torah study, so therefore we push chita? Well, Chumash, Torah, the Torah was given on Shavuos. All right, well, that makes sense. Psalms, Tehillim, well, King David passed away on Shavuos. So on the day of your passing, your energy is the strongest. King David wrote Psalms. He passed away on Shavuos, so Psalms is connected to Shavuos. Tehillim is connected to King David, is connected to his passing, is connected to Shavuos. And Tanya is teaching us the foundations of Hasidic philosophy. And the Baal Shem Tov also passed away on Shavuos. So we have Chumash, given by Moshe on Shavuos. We have Psalms, Tehillim, written by King David, who passed away on Shavuos. And we have Tanya, the foundational work of Hasidus, connected to the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidus, who passed away on Shavuos. So therefore we have all these links of Chitas, Chumash, the Torah, Tehillim, Psalms, and Tanya, the seminal work of Hasidic philosophy. Chitas all linked to Shavuos. And again, traditionally, the Lubavitcher Rebbe would ask people to strengthen their chita. So if you were looking for something and couldn't think of what in the world you could add in Torah study, here's a great idea. And again, go on Chabad.org, write in the search bar chitas, CHITAS, and you'll find many user-friendly ways to do this. Some people have the custom to decorate their homes and their synagogues with flowers or sweet-smelling plants before the holiday. Now, obviously, this has to be done before the holiday. You cannot decorate your home with flowers or your synagogue with flowers on the holiday, because flowers are muktzah. There's something you cannot touch and move on the holiday. But before the holiday, you can. Many reasons are given. Again, we could give many, many reasons. Just one basic one is that God made a miracle, that even though the Torah was given in a desert for many spiritual reasons, but the land was fertile. The mountain had an abundance of greenery and flowers. So we envision this desert around us, but the area of Mount Sinai full of beautiful, sweet-smelling flowers, and we make our homes and synagogues commemorating this full of these beautiful flowers as well. Like every other holiday, basically a holiday has all the laws of Sabbath with two exceptions. You can cook from a pre-existing flame, as we discussed last week, the pre-existing flame in terms of lighting the candles the second night. Friday night has to be from a pre-existing flame. Pre-existing flame could either mean you could leave a little fire on your range. If it's hot, you don't want to do that. You could also leave a yahrzeit candle burning, those 24 or 48-hour candles. So you could use that both to light your candles for the Sabbath and as to ignite your fire to cook or to heat something up. The other thing, the only basic difference between the holiday and Sabbath, again, cooking laws and everything connected to cooking. So for example, on Sabbath, we have this whole very difficult, challenging thing called borer, which means you're not allowed to select. Well, you don't have to deal with that on the holiday because that is connected to cooking. You're allowed to cook, so you're allowed to select. It's always a big psychological relief for me that I don't have to deal with that. I always realize what a pressure it is on the holiday when I don't have to deal with it. And the other difference between the holiday and Sabbath is you are allowed to carry if necessary. You can't carry for no purpose, but if there's a needed purpose, you have to get something from point A to point B, you're allowed to do it on the holiday. Otherwise, it's the same. I'd like to take the remaining time to give some thoughts to understand how we're supposed to spiritually connect to this holiday. Before I do so, does anyone else have any technical questions about the holidays? What we discussed last week or today, or anything I didn't mention? Anyone have any technical questions about the holiday? This is your opportunity. All right, well, the truth is, you could always put it on our group WhatsApp. Your opportunity is not over when this class is over. Let's talk about the spirituality. What are we supposed to be thinking? So the spirituality really means understanding the spirituality of, and there's so many, many, many ideas. Truth is, I just made a little video for my YouTube channel about Torah study. Nicely timed in connection to Shavuos. God willing, I'll remember. I'll put it on our group. If you didn't see it before, you could watch it. I contain in there a lot of different ideas. But basically, Torah is God sharing with us his diary. When God gave us the Torah, he gave us himself. The first word of the 10 Commandments is I. Okay, I. Well, makes sense. I am God. You're God. I am your Lord. I am your God. But in Hebrew, the normal word for God, for I, is 3-letter word, ani. That's how you say I in biblical Hebrew and in modern Hebrew. But in the 10 Commandments, the first word is not ani. It's a very fancy, never otherwise basically used word for I. Anoichi. Our sages say the word anoichi is used instead of the shorter normative word ani, because anoichi spells out ana nafshis kisavis yahavis. That's Aramaic if it didn't sound familiar. And ana nafshis kisavis yahavis, which is the spelling out of the word anoichi, symbolizes I put myself in the writings. I, anoichi, ana nafshis kisavis yahavis. I put myself in the writings. God is telling us, when I gave you the Torah, I gave you myself. If you want me, capital letter me, God, study Torah. Grasp me with your mind, and I will be within. God is saying, I put myself in the writings. I will be one with you. The closest to God is through learning his Torah. That is the closest we can ever achieve to God. Like a child who loves his father, who loves his mother, who loves his parent. And when the child sees his parent, his beloved parent, he runs to him, he hugs him, he kisses him. You know, like the father they don't see all day. The mother they take for granted. But when they see their father, they feel so much love and they're running and hugging and kissing. Now, when the child is doing that, that small child is not showing all this affection for what he's going to get out of it. When my son Dover gives me a hug, he's not thinking, it's not a calculated hug. What do I want to get from mommy? He just loves me, so he's hugging me. He's warm, he's affectionate, he gives me a hug. The child loves their father, loves their mother, runs and gives them a kiss, gives them a hug. So too a Jew. When you have a free moment, you want to give your father God a hug. You want to give him a kiss. You want to give him an embrace. You want to express how much you love him. And what do? How do we express that love? We study Torah. Because when we learn Torah, we are taking God, and we are one. So when you're learning Torah like that, you're not learning Torah to know what to do, though we're supposed to learn Torah to know what to do. You're not learning Torah to fulfill the commandment of learning Torah, though we have a commandment to learn Torah. To get reward, though there's tremendous reward for learning Torah. Why are you learning Torah? Well, maybe you're learning Torah for all the blessings you get when you learn Torah. There's a lot of blessings you get when you learn Torah. No, I'm not learning Torah because I got to know what to do. I'm not learning Torah for the commandment. I'm not learning Torah for the reward. I'm not learning Torah for the blessings. I'm learning Torah to give God a hug. That my mind and his have this interlocking embrace. That's how I give God a hug. That's how I get the closest to God possible, when I learn his Torah. The good news is that's what you're doing now in this class. So every week when you're on this class, you and God are having that hug. And if you want to hug him more, you'll learn more. And thank God there are so many opportunities. You can own books. Very easy today. I believe in my house, no question. I have more holy books than most towns and shtetl had in Europe. No question. You could own books. You should own holy books. They change the atmosphere of your home. You could go online. You could listen to audio. You could watch videos. It's translated into all the languages. It's so accessible. It's so user-friendly. And you and God are one. Also, Torah is the only food for our soul. Literally. You can do commandments all day long, and hopefully you do, and hopefully you eat kosher, and hopefully you keep the Sabbath, and hopefully you dress modestly, and hopefully you don't steal, and you don't gossip, and that's all great. But none of that is feeding your soul. You could do that all day long, and your soul is weak and starving. Only Torah feeds the soul. Only Torah has energy that gets inside the soul. And you and God become one. Not just on the level of your mind. There's an interlocking mental embrace between your mind and God's thoughts. And on the level of your soul, you and God are one. What a gift. Who am I? A little speck of creation. Me, little speck of creation, and the ultimate creator, and we are literally one. On the level of mind, we're one. On the level of soul, we're one. Which doesn't happen when I do the commandments. When I do the commandments, I'm nullified to God, but exclusively, meaning only with Torah, am I one. The relationship to God when I learn Torah is closer than all the supernal realms, all the holy spiritual worlds, all the angels, all godliness. That's all great. That's all spiritual. That's all holy. And that's all creation. Creation gets its life from Torah. I am one with Torah. I am one with God in Torah. So I, God, Torah, we're the source for the energy of all these supernal levels and angels and spiritual dimensions. It's a really cool thing. And when you immerse your mind in something really complex and brilliant, and you walk away just awed with the brilliance of Torah, it's such a satisfying feeling. And it's also the do. We're told actually that we know when we have the complete revelation of the Mashiach, of the Messiah, of redemption, a very significant thing that's going to happen is the revival of the dead. It will happen initially for the most righteous, and then over time, ultimately, for every single Jew that ever lived. That will be a process. They won't all get up at the first moments of redemption. The very holy ones will get up right away, and people that passed away more recently will get up more easily. And then over many years, 40 years we're told, every single Jew will have the resurrection with a special dew, the dew that revives the dead. And what is that dew? That dew is Torah. That dew is the inner dimension of Torah. So when we learn now, Hasidus, when we learn the inner dimension of Torah, we are imbibing the dew that revives the dead. We get a lot of amazing energy when we learn Torah because it is literally the dew of the resurrection. When we are looking at Torah, Torah was given on the tablets, right? When God gave us the Torah, he didn't give us a book. He didn't give us a printed document. He didn't give us a handwritten manuscript. He didn't give us a Torah scroll like we see in a synagogue. He gave us 2 tablets, stone tablets, carved out letter. And that was very deliberate design. He could have given us like a Torah scroll looks in synagogue, right? The parchment with the ink, with a quill. But God didn't want to do that. He wanted to give us carved out tablets, which are actually very miraculous because we're told that some of the letters in the 10 Commandments are circular. So how does a circular letter, how does that inside stay when there's a complete circle? It was a miracle. There were a lot of miracles going on there. But why did God give it to us in that fashion? Because you could have Torah like a Torah scroll. There's parchment and there's ink, and the parchment and ink become one. And that's very cool and very special and very close to God. But the parchment and ink could also be separated. You could scrape off the ink from that parchment. But when you have carved out tablets, the letters are formed from the stone themselves. The letters are the tablets. That's the relationship we have with Torah. We're innately one. Nothing can separate us. If you have a Torah scroll, the letters could crack, the ink can flake off. If it's carved out, there's nothing that could take it away. That's the relationship of God and the Jewish people. That's Torah. Is there some part of Judaism that you relate to that with? Meaning, is there something that either innately or perhaps with work on your part, you feel this about, that nothing, no matter what, can separate you from this? Is there something in Judaism that does this for you? That you feel how you are so one with it, that whatever happened, that's not going to fall away. That could never fall away. Commandment, a way of serving, a custom, something that really resonates very, very deep in your soul.
I felt it when I go to mikvah.
It just felt like really, really you, really deep.
I felt like I'm hugged by God at that time.
That is actually the idea. When you're it's total immersion. Mikvah is total immersion, and that is a very big godly hug. I mean, not everyone is sensitive enough to feel it, but that's exactly what it is. So that's so nice that you experienced it that way. That really is. That's really, really special. Anyone else have something that they relate to on that way of like, yeah, it's not written, no ink on parchment. This is me. This is engraved from my essence and being. Because that's what we mean by the tablets. The letters come from the stone themselves. No way it ever could get lost. This is the stone. These are the letters. These are the 10 Commandments. This is Torah.
For me, it's lighting Shabbat candles, Friday night, and Shabbat dinner.
By night and by day, or just by night? Which one?
By night. Yeah, by night. Mm-hmm.
That you just feel no matter what, this is you. You can't stop this, no matter what's going on.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, because we have a routine and my husband is more involved. So he's saying all the brachas. So
that's beautiful. Wow. That's amazing. Progression,
very little, but progression. Yes.
A wise woman builds her home. It's okay. We go little by little. progression. That's beautiful. That's so nice to hear. And that's very special. The Shabbos candles bring Shabbos to the home, and the kiddush and the meal and the challah, and this is taking in Shabbos every single week. That's really special. Anyone else have something like that?
Tzarel, I wanted to tell, I think I told you that story about my mom who is fighting Alzheimer's. And last year, I think it was, or at the time when she was still functioning and was able to talk, but she forgot her name. She didn't know her name. But the last thing she remembered, she was Jewish. So it's remarkable. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know her name. She didn't recognize me as her daughter, but she knew she was Jewish.
How did you know that she knew she was Jewish?
Well, I would say to her, first of all, I would wear scarf, and I would come to her, help her to get up. And she would look at me and she goes, "Are you Jewish?" She didn't recognize me as her.
I remember you told me this. It's so precious.
Right.
She didn't know who you were, but she knew you were Jewish. And so she was
because
telling you, we're both Jewish. You're Jewish and I'm Jewish too.
And I go to her, "Are you Jewish?" She goes, "Yes, yes." So that's cool.
Amazing. That's so core. That is so core. And speaking of a woman who literally went through the whole communist regime, and they couldn't stamp that out of her.
Right. And that's what she remembered. And sometimes I would say to her, "Sie gesund." I would say to her in Yiddish after she would perk up right away. She goes, "You know Yiddish?" She would be, because she thought she was in a hospital or something like this, and I was somebody who works there. So she was so delighted that the person who works there speaks Yiddish. We had a lot of those moments. So
that's actually very, very amazing.
And another thing, I don't want to take a lot of time, but when we brought my dad to set up hospice at home, she really didn't recognize him. So she says to me, "Why are we having hospital in my home?" And we were worried that she would get upset. And I don't know why. And I said to her, "This man has no place to go." She goes, "So?" And I said, "He's a Jewish man." And she said, "Then he can stay."
Wow. Wow. That's very profound.
We didn't want her to get agitated, because it's a disease where she can get upset and anxious. So we tried to calm her down. And this just came to me. I just said, "He's Jewish." And that was enough for her. She wanted to provide a Jewish man who she didn't know a place to be.
Wow. That is an amazing example of this concept. That is the most amazing example, because it shows it's the deepest way to express this concept, as what Rivka was saying, because there's no intellect there. It's deeper than that. That's the idea of engraved letters. It's not ink that could flake off. Anything that could have happened to destroy it happened. It should have all gotten washed away. Your mind is gone. Your memories are gone. You don't recognize your daughter. You don't recognize your husband. But that's engraved letters. That is an unbelievable example. Not that we should see our parents in this situation, but it's an unbelievable example for ourselves of the truth of our identity. And I mean, not in this as dramatic a way as Rivka was saying, but my grandfather had very severe dementia. He was on, the top floor in the nursing home. My grandfather was like other Jews in America, what happened to the Jews of America. So he, went that route, meaning he wasn't Orthodox and he wasn't learned. And here he has very severe dementia. He's on the top floor. And at that point, your mind sort of just gets stuck on a certain track, we remember old records. And people say one thing all day long. People say, "Ma, ma, ma." And my grandfather would say a line of a prayer all day long, every day of his life, until he passed away in that nursing home. "Oiseh shalom b'mraimov, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen." And then he would say it again. And he would say it again, and he would say it again all day long. He didn't know who I was. My husband came and put tefillin, the phylacteries on him every day. He didn't know who he was. The only thing he knew was that line of that prayer. And again, it just felt like that was coming from such a deep essence place. What is a Jew at that time where everything's washed away, but that core, that's really precious. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else can think of like a commandment or something that resonates in them akin to that? Thank God we have our faculty, so it's not as obvious. But like Miriam said, immersion in the mikvah, or the lighting of the candles, the Shabbos meal, as Menucha said. Anyone else have something inside their own relationship with God that feels like that core, that cannot be taken away, will never be taken away? Knowing yourself, it's hard to feel and know like that so clearly. But I believe we all have things because, and again, as is fortunate, Miriam and Menucha know what resonates so deeply with their soul, but we all have it. It says in the Talmud, people talking about people's fathers, like, what was your father's forte in serving God? Now we're talking here about perfect people that did everything. So what was the forte meant? Like, what was that special piece of service of God that their soul, like, so connected to? That was them. And we all have it. We all have something that just resonates in our soul. Not that we're off the hook for anything else, but that piece is just, it's just really deep. It could be Psalms, it could be charity, it could be Torah study, it could be covering the hair, it could be making blessings. Just something just is so deep, you know, this is you no matter what, this is you. And it's very special when you like feel your peace and can really feel, as Rivka sees with her mother, just that so deep is our relationship to God. Now, Torah was given in the 3rd month, which just started actually yesterday. Sunday was the first day of the 3rd Jewish month, the month of Sivan. It's a little confusing in the Jewish calendar. If your calendar, we count the years and we count the months. So the years start with Rosh Hashanah. That's the head of the year. The head of the year is the 7th month. So it's the month of Tishrei, which is the 7th month, but it's the head of the year. So our year begins every Tishrei in the fall. But our months start with Nisan, with the month of Exodus, with the month of Passover. So biblically, we count the months, and then a separate count, we count the years. Unlike in the solar calendar, there's a separate counting of the months and the years. So the months start from Nisan. The month we left Egypt, that's the 1st month. The 2nd month was a month that we just experienced, everyday counting, the Omer count, getting closer and closer to God. And the 3rd month, which began yesterday, is the month of Sivan, the month of the giving of the Torah. And there's a lot of significance to that, a lot of spiritual reasons for that 1, 2, 3 in connection to receiving the Torah. There's many more reasons than I have time to discuss, but I just want to touch on the idea. So the 1st month, Nisan, the month of the Exodus of Passover, is like 1. All there is God, overwhelming God. Iyar, the 2nd month, we do the work. That's the work of the counting of the Omer, of the Sphira. We work on our animal. We focus on nullifying ourselves to God. When we get to the 3rd month, again, that started yesterday, Sivan, we progress past that. Now, it's not like there's one God, plus there's 2 us. Now, we and God are united. Union is the number 3. Because there was 2 separate elements. There was God and there was me. That's 2. But through Torah, now we're 3. Now there's a new existence. Now there's the fusion of God and us into a new entity. 1, 2, and then we fuse. That's 3. And that's really the paradigm for marriage. First there was 1, you, and then 2, you and him, and then 3. Because you and him become a new existence, a bigger existence, a more powerful existence, a stronger existence than either of you alone. You, him, marriage. And that's the giving of the Torah. God, us, 1. And that's why we got married to God in the 3rd month. We're actually told that 3,335 years ago, by the first giving of the Torah, that was our official engagement. In Jewish law, the engagement the legal engagement is the first step in marriage. It's a very significant step. If you decide to stop being engaged, you literally get divorced. It's a commitment, but it's not the completion. The giving of the Torah was the official engagement, and redemption, Mashiach, is the marriage. We've been engaged a long, long, long time. So we have this marriage dynamic. That's, again, very interesting. The Torah was given in the 3rd month because of these dynamics. Because you think, well, Torah's all about one. We and God are one uniquely. Absolutely, we're one through Torah. So give us the Torah in the 1st month. In Nisan, when you took us out of Egypt. Why are you giving to us in the 3rd month? But this is the point. This is the point of our relationship with God. This is the point of marriage. Unity is not when there's one. It's when there's options and you're still one. Think of the parable given, the storyline for this, the metaphor is a prince sent to a distant land with primitive people. And there in that distant land with primitive people, he's still the prince. He still behaves like the prince. He still inside knows he's a prince. So that's the idea of the month of 3. Not one, not when there's just God. It doesn't show me anything. But when we're in a physical reality, and there's other options to prioritize besides God, and we still choose God. And not only that, we take these other options and we bring them into the relationship. That's real oneness. So 3 expresses the oneness more than 1. And this parallels marriage in relationship. When there's difficulty, when there's conflict, and you make the choice to more deeply commit to the relationship, that creates a much deeper oneness. So that 3, there's you, there's your husband, and there's that other element, that 3, that dangling outside issue, problem, distraction, temptation. And that actually helps cement the relationship. So having some other thing and then choosing the relationship makes the relationship much stronger. In a physical world, there's a lot of dangling, loose end temptations, distractions, other choices, and we still choose God. And that is a much deeper oneness than it was just one. It was just God's reality. There's a lot of other messages of 3, marriage, our relationship to God, giving of the Torah. 3 gives the message, it can't just be one. Sometimes in a marriage, it's a marriage of one. There's you and he's supposed to be revolving around your orbit. No, that doesn't work. Sometimes it's 2. It's you and him, a wobbly 2-legged chair. Doesn't work either. And sometimes in the marriage it's 3 because you bring God in. You, your husband, and God. Now there's stability. Now there's oneness. Now it's something bigger, stronger, more powerful. I don't know if you've seen this, possibly you have, but the more you bring God into marriage, the stronger, the more supportive, the more nurturing your marriage becomes. And that was us and God and the giving of the Torah 3,335 years ago. It's us, it's God, and it's the Torah. And those 3 create a one, a unity, entity far stronger than any of the parts alone. One last thought. I know I put out a lot here, and there's a lot of things to think about that I'm not really giving you time to think. I'm just dumping a lot of information dumping here, a lot of thoughts, a lot of things you can reflect on. But another totally different thing I wanted to bring out that also very much relates to the giving of the Torah is humility, which is, of course, the classical idea of why was little Mount Sinai chosen? We're told that all the mountains wanted this merit, and mountains were very tall, and mountains were very wide, and mountains are very beautiful. And there's this little Mount Sinai that's nothing special. And she definitely didn't think the Torah would be given on her. And God said, ooh, I like that. Modesty, humility, nullification. That's the quality that's going to bring me into God. bring God to the world, bring God to the Jews. So Mount Sinai is the perfect place to give the Torah. So it's all about humility. And then you could say, wait a minute, if God was so into this humility business, which he is, and if nullification is the greatest magnet for God, which it is, and if our nullification to God is our lifetime and past this lifetime endeavor, which it is, why did God give Torah on a mountain in the first place? Like, why did he give Torah in a valley? That sounds really low. That sounds really modest. That sounds really self-effacing. Why give a small mountain? Why give a mountain at all? But God was giving us a very powerful, simple, strong message. You need to be a mountain. You need strength. The mountain is called the vegetation of the inanimate. It's the ultimate growth within inanimate. It's strong. It's big. And we need that strength. So we need to be Mount Sinai. We need to be small and humble and self-effacing. But under all that humility, we need to be really tough. We need to be mountains. Our ancestors were really tough. They were really strong. Every single one of you comes from such strong stock. No, I don't know your grandparents and your great-grandparents, but I know if you know you're Jewish today, you come from very strong stock. You came from people that went through fire, water, and everything we can imagine and that we can't imagine, and they still stuck with being Jews. Like Rivka's saying about her mom, it's not even a choice. It's something deeper than choice. It's just self. It's just what you are. And our ancestors, every one of us had ancestors and their ancestors and their ancestors in an unbroken chain from Abraham and Sarah until today. And even if your parents or grandparents were like a little broken links on the chain, and maybe they didn't know that much about God, and maybe they didn't do that much, but they were still clinging to that chain because you still know you're Jewish. And maybe if you tried to forget it, the world didn't let you. But your ancestors and their ancestors and their ancestors were mountains. When God gave us the Torah, he knew the future. He knew what we would go through. And he knew we couldn't be valleys. No, the Jewish people would not have survived as valleys. Nullified, but not that nullified. Nullified and very, very, very strong. So nullification doesn't mean to be weak. We got to be mountains. We got to be tough. We got to be strong. We got to live up for our beliefs. We've got to convey them to our children. We've got to convey them to our grandchildren. We're speaking in the beginning of the class about great-grandchildren. You got to convey them to your great-grandchildren. And at the same time, nullification of self, humility, like Mount Sinai, a modest mountain. What's the modesty? What's the humility? Because we know it's all from God. We have a lot of strength, and it's all from God. We have a lot of gifts. It's all from God. We're all very smart. Jews are very smart people. It's all from God. We're all very strong. Jews are strong people. It's all from God. Just like Moses, Moshe, he gave us the Torah. He knew this. He had lots of other amazing qualities. And the Torah testifies he was the most humble man that ever lived. He knew he gave us the Torah. He knew he took us out of Egypt. He knew he was in heaven for 120 days. He knew he led the Jews for 40 years. How could he be the most humble man that ever lived? He wasn't delusional. How was he the most humble man that ever lived? Because he knew it was all from God. And maybe if someone else had all of his gifts, he would have done far more. And why am I talking about this now? Because this is also a prerequisite to getting the Torah. I mean, just as we spoke last week, that unity among the Jews is a prerequisite for getting the Torah. Just as we mentioned last week that actually it's supposed to be this Thursday, we are supposed to all contemplate and express to God, just as we did 3,335 years ago. We will do, and then we'll understand. That's the second prerequisite to getting the Torah. This is a third prerequisite for the Torah, humility. Know your strengths, celebrate your strengths, appreciate your strengths. Don't knock yourself. Don't think of you're smaller than you are. We don't want to be small. We want to be big, and know it's all from God. And know that possibly if someone else had as many gifts as you receive from God, they could be doing even more.